Good morning, everyone, all the way from here in Bendigo in central Victoria, Australia. I'm speaking from the land of the Jar Jar Wrong, and I'd like to acknowledge the elders of the past, present, and future, and acknowledge the First Peoples' struggle against capitalism, against colonialism. Their struggle is part of our struggle, the class struggle. Well, first of all, this is now. It's been at least 2 weeks. I've done the last actual long live chat. Beware, Caleb Morpin's on at 11 o'clock, starting his live chat, and I've put his links in the description below, and also too I put where I regard as a good friend and a comrade, Dust James's links as well for his for his live pages when he goes as well. So if you care to actually click on those links, like them, subscribe to them, share them far and wide to the rest of the world. Make sure everyone in the planet likes it and subscribes it. So there's 8 billion of us here on the planet, and obviously too, I'm going to encourage you all to share my one up with the rest of the world. So by this time next week, we should have 8 billion subscribers. That is your task for the week. Right. Well, it's been an interesting week. It's been quite an extraordinary week. It's just the situation with COVID-19 here in Victoria. Yes, we've had a few things lifted, aka restrictions. We did have a few new cases. Well, actually, one in regional Victoria up near Shepparton. Actually, about 2 weeks ago. They've fortunately got that under control, and a lot of people got tested at Shepparton. For those you don't know, it's about just over an hour drive from here, northeast of here in Bendigo. It's actually a major manufacturing centre for all our food production. So brands like SPC, Campbell's Soups, all that, and even some of our dairy, it's all manufactured there. And obviously, if there's an outbreak of COVID-19, that certainly sends that industry into some form of panic, and they need to actually get onto it straight away. Well, that's fortunately they brought that under control, and then obviously just over the last few days there was an outbreak in the northern suburbs of Melbourne, actually all related to one school, one community. Fortunately, I think they believe they got that under control as well. We're actually quite fortunate. We haven't seen the big outbreaks like they're seen in the US or the UK or in Europe now, Spain, Italy. I'm led to believe that's just horrendous. Yeah, look, we'll also tell we got the anti-mask lift the restrictions type people out there, the conspiracies. We've got our fair share of them here, not as great a number compared to overseas, but they're certainly there. They had their rally on Saturday. If you're lucky if there was even 100 turned up to that. Actually interesting, just on an amusing side, someone tried to organise a rally here in Bendigo. We're on stage and no one showed up. I think people, especially in regional Victoria, they're not stupid. We don't want to see this virus spread. No, we don't like lockdown. Of course, we don't like wearing masks, but we have to get on top of this. We certainly don't want to see what's been happening overseas. The Andrews government, the state government, certainly under attack by the Murdoch media and conservative forces, but actually his support's actually increased. Interesting, hasn't declined. It's been quite remarkable. He hasn't promised anything so far, but I think everyone expects everyone back to work straight away. And we all know full well, even though we will be coming into summer. It's particularly cold day today. The fact is, summer's not a guarantee that it'll, stop this virus. Sure, we might be able to naturally distance ourselves from each other because of warmer and hotter weather, but look, this virus is a very cunning virus. It's a very conniving virus, and obviously we've got to keep the level of cases down as much as the minimum to possible. Actually, preferably we wipe this virus out altogether. I believe vaccines now in the making. So that's an interesting thing. And the week in politics here as well, the aftermath of the federal budget. Obviously, the aftermath's been an interesting discussion in the media for the last 2 weeks or so. What you're seeing here in our federal budget, let's put it out there, look, people will get a tax cut, but all you see is massive transfer of wealth to the super rich. And that's basically what it was. And then people like myself and other fellow workers out there, we may get $20 $40 a week tax cut. That might be in our pocket. But this is the whole neoliberal thinking. I'd rather that $40 be spent on services such as health, education, even into infrastructure or other vital services, not and turning us into a user pay system in such a way. Well, if you haven't got the money, you don't get it, basically. And it really, otherwise, it's not going to get us too far. I think some people do save a little bit, might use it to pay off mortgages, etc. Because we are in a lot. Our domestic debt is huge in Australia. It's actually quite massive, and this is and they're trying to do whatever to ease it. Capitalist solution to a capitalist problem. We all know capitalism can't resolve these contradictions. There's been other interesting things during the week as well. I mean, we haven't seen around the world. Obviously, I watched the US presidential debate last week, and that was on our Friday. And actually, Friday for Victoria was gazetted a public holiday, so I had time to actually watch it, and I could see the fight between the two. The fact between the two factions of the ruling class, the super rich and the rich, where Biden's now, the super rich is getting behind Biden, and the rich are getting behind Trump. Although there's a few people that jumped camp over to Biden and let's believe. I think Biden shot himself in the foot in a lot of areas, I think, and he is completely gone. I think, I don't make a joke about dementia, etc., but you can see some of the stuff he's talking about. I thought you're all over the place. Some people have asked me what I predict. Look, I think there's a strong possibility Trump will win. I think he won't pull this off, but you don't know. Will it affect us here in Australia? Sure, because we're caught up in US foreign policy and other things. I think Biden was psycho actually when he's describing other countries and that, and obviously. Basically, going to gear up for complete outright war because on US imperialism, and what you're actually seeing, the US is no longer the world's largest economy. It's China. China's superseded it now. China's racing ahead, and yes, and our imperial masters don't like that one little bit. So if Trump can't do it, well, obviously they're going to have to get someone else that will do it, do their bidding for them to contain that again and to put the US back on the forefront. So that's what we're seeing there. As I said, look, I haven't got a crystal ball, so really by early November, it's not far off. I think it's another week or just over a week or so away. I can't really see what's going on. It's hard to say. I think it's going to be close one way or the other. I don't think it'll be landslide for either of them. I think it'll be close. Will US society be polarised even more? Yes, I think so. Especially if it's neck to neck all the way. And I think it's basically the bitterness there between two camps is phenomenal. What the effects of polarisation will happen here in Australia? Well, to a certain degree it is, but not compared to what was the US. I think we're actually at the moment, there's like all white calm before the storm. This whole COVID-19 situation certainly polarised some people, but that's not the majority of people were quite supportive of had to be supportive of government lockdowns because it's such an insidious virus. The other thing as well, the way the state of the economy, that's been on the cards for a long time. All COVID-19 did was just fast track a few things. That's all basically. But the Australian economy was going to the wall anyway. So they obviously, it's all about blame game, trying to deflect us all to focus on other areas and not actually deflecting attention. That is the systematic crisis of capitalism itself. The crisis of overproduction, which is the primary cause amongst all these other things, and then you get the symptoms from it, from debt, home debt, etc., unemployment, all that. So that's what we're seeing. Also, too, for Australia, related to US elections. But the other thing was interesting, though, was the New Zealand elections. Jacinda Allan, leader of the New Zealand Labor Party, they formed government in their own right. And what was interesting was in a landslide, they gained more seats, more popular. She's quite a popular Prime Minister. And I think it's because she's been doing quite a lot of things there. And look, I'm no fan of any Labor Party being social. Democratic Party. But look, I've got certainly a lot of criticisms, but there's also too, we acknowledge where they do, and there has been good work done with anybody. I think overall, I think it was quite a knock to the head to the conservative forces of politics as well. I'm not saying this is going to advance New Zealand to socialism. No, I'm not saying that as well. But what we're seeing here, it was a backlash against a lot of neoliberal, or a lot of ultra-conservative politics as well. So we'll just see how the next few years New Zealand pans out for them. But they did exceptionally well for COVID-19. They actually for a capitalist nation. They actually did exceptionally well. Just that bit off the screen, and they've actually managed to get on top of it very quickly, actually quicker than us in Australia here. So it says a lot. And interesting about New Zealand, there's no Murdoch press, and I never knew that until someone mentioned it to me during this week, that Murdoch does not have any influence in New Zealand politics. Australia, which is really interesting. It's one of the very few probably the only English-speaking country, or maybe correct, there's South Africa as well. Murdoch doesn't have any sway in there at all. And it's interesting because you look at what's happening with Murdoch Press at the moment. They're being the mouthpiece of the ultra-conservative, ultra-reactionary Liberal National Coalition, and it's a big business. Get everyone back to work. Don't matter about the workers' health. And don't worry about the population's well-being. We've got to get everyone back to work to make profit. And it's real nasty stuff. We've got Sky News here, which is a Murdoch mouthpiece, and it is absolutely disgusting. I don't even watch it. I refuse to even read any of the articles that come out of there whatsoever. It's just blatant propaganda. Obviously, in Victoria here, we've got the Herald Sun, otherwise known as the Herald Scum. New South Wales has got the Daily Telegraph, otherwise known as the Smelly Graph, etc. Courier Mail in Queensland, the Advertiser in Adelaide, and the NT Times Not News in Northern Territory, which is just equally disgusting. And then, of course, the national Murdoch newspaper, the Australian. People quite call it the Un-Australian, but I just think, look, very extremely rare I'd pay any attention to any of those articles at all. It is just straight propaganda, and it's based blatant control. It's nasty. It's horrible. It's not. I don't even call a lot of it journalism. And a lot of those people working for Murdoch they're not journalists. They're commentators. They just make their own comment, or they have to make their own comment. And there's been people come and go from that company, and a lot of the ex-Murdoch people, a lot of people left it because they said they had to write. That was their job. If they didn't actually write the truth, they'd be sacked quite straight away. They enjoyed being doing some of the work, but really, and they knew they were directed. They had to write things a particular way. So it is pretty nasty, trash type stuff. Most commercial media for me, I don't want paying too much attention to it. Mainstream media, it's otherwise known. There might be a few odd little things that might be interesting, especially to do with union stuff. If we've done a by committee unions, done a picket line or a rally, a march, or some sort of political stunt, etc. Well, yeah, obviously, or any other group, yeah, it might be on the news, and we pay attention to it. At least it's got out there, but I don't pay too much attention to it. Talkback radio. The other thing as well, it's even those morning programs like Sunrise and that. I can't stand why anyone would want to watch television first thing in the morning. I never could understand that. I used to when I was a young whippersnapper kid. We watched cartoons and that first thing in the morning, but it just, I think personally, the television should be off until late in the afternoon. Actually, not even late in the afternoon, 6 o'clock it turns on, maybe for the kids a bit earlier, and that's it. I just think, why would anyone be beamed with that first thing in the morning? I've been to airports. I've actually been into lunchrooms at places where both in my capacity as a union official, but also in my capacity as a boilermaker as well. We've had lunchrooms with television screens, and they're just panning out crap. I thought, turn the damn thing off. I'd like to have peace and quiet first thing in the morning like this. So just reflect, a little bit of time out for the day so I can reflect, and but that will make sure I have my time myself. Because it's vitally important for my own mental and emotional well-being. So yeah, it's just what I was saying, going through our mainstream media, I really don't like paying too much attention to it. I've got back to watching some of the ABC news. I was mainly keeping updated about COVID-19 because they first on hand for Victoria here to keep us updated, but also I just watched some of it and 7:30 report again. Yuck. I do watch it at times. I actually analyse what's sent through as well. The ABC, look, when people, you got friends of the ABC out there about saving the ABC, but look, it's far gone. It's been shot. It's been deprived of a lot of funding. Really independent journalism is very much small amount. They're pretty much dictated to now what they've got to say. Actually, what really pissed me off, it was only about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, when they were talking about the US elections and they were interviewing these Latinos in Florida, and they're talking about how they escaped from socialist regimes and socialist dictatorships and that. And I thought, you bunch of wankers pointing that out. No, they're not dictatorships at all. Far from it. They're freely democratically elected governments, legitimate governments. Not illegitimate, like US sponsored, but legitimate governments, and with popular support amongst the population. And I just think, parasites, when putting that stuff out. Same with their role over Syria. They played a complete shit. The ABC sorry to say this, but could play a complete awful and shit position over Syria as well. I like to actually get stuck into one journalist there, or so-called commentator, Lee Shears. Sorry, not Lee Shears. Pardon me, Lee, if you are watching that. Lee Shears, a friend of mine. Her name will come back to me in a minute, but I'd like to rip her another arsehole of that. Sorry about using some of the language here, but I was just rather passionate about that. And that's just, it's just awful in hearing some of the stuff that come out of it. That's why I don't pay much attention to anything else mainstream media. Mind you, on ABC, the Four Corners do some excellent programs as well, and they've done some great investigations, but they've also done some pretty horrible ones. I'm over about the anti-China rhetoric, certainly all these other stuff as well. So I'd like to give a little message to the ABC: hands off China. Stop blaming China as well. I could talk a little bit more about China later on. But look, I think it's what I do want to talk about, going back to the media, though, what's been also interesting this last 2 weeks. One of our former Prime Ministers, Kevin Rudd, created a petition, to actually to tackle the Murdoch media empire. Now, I've got my criticism, obviously, of Kevin Rudd. I'm no fanatical fan of his or anything like that, but I will say I think good work should be acknowledged where it's done. Yep. Yes, he was a Labor Prime Minister of Australia. No, he wasn't. He's definitely anti-communist, anti-socialist. He's pro-imperialist in his own right. But look, we do need to have a look, and we do need to acknowledge where good work is done. And he put a petition out to sign up people to take it on because of the blatantness of the Murdoch empire out of trying to swing public opinion. And there was actually one on I believe it was on the Australian newspaper. Just going back to the New Zealand elections, how they commented New Zealand, I think it was led along the lines, New Zealanders voted back in an incompetent prime minister. I mean, it's just like, it was just blatant stuff. I mean, if anyone's incompetent, it's Murdoch. Kevin Rudd did some good thing, I think, by writing a petition. It was basically to dismantle the Murdoch media empire because he's got too much influence. No Australian out of the two major parties, the Liberal National Coalition and the Labor Party, they're not prepared to take him on. But that's the problem. We do need some real strong leadership to dismantle that for a start. It would be probably a positive thing for Australia, to be honest with you. Might not be revolutionary, but certainly positive to have it dismantled. Because he owns over about 70% of the media here in this country. And it's disgusting. As I said, it's awful stuff. It's not even journalism. It's just trash. They're going about being conservative and about high moral values, but look at the back pages and then in their classifieds. They got advertisements for brothels and prostitution, strip clubs, etc. So they're hypocrites as well. Well, what it is, over 350,000 people signed that petition. I'm led to believe, and I believe many more. There was troubles trying to jump on the web page to sign it because it was a government web page for the petition, which can be easily set up by anyone, to be honest with you, and it still has to go to Parliament. But people were having trouble. It's just because so much traffic, it could be caused a logjam. I managed to get put my name down for it. I thought, well, yeah, this is the right thing to do, and signed on to it. So let's see how that goes. It certainly created a lot of good conversation. It went everywhere, and common people to sign it. But over 350,000, and I think many more trying to sign on to it. So if you haven't signed on to it, go to it. I think probably just Google it, Kevin Rudd petition, or it certainly should come up there. So that's something positive, and I think people have had enough. Actually, the way to have it enough. I know I shouldn't say this on YouTube, but look, really by rights too, someone's actually hit the nail on the head with about the Murdoch media empire. Don't buy it. Don't sign. Don't subscribe to their Fox News or Foxtel or Sky News. No, I actually don't. And what was actually interesting, I was in my local supermarket here in Bendigo. Or any of the local supermarkets, they can't seem to even give away the Herald Suns or any of these newspapers. They just pile up. Some people do buy them still, but you find most of them. There's a whole pile of them at the end of the day. No one I don't think they can give them away. I think all they're good for is to go back in the recycling bin, or if you're into making models such as model railways and that, they're good to use the paper mache side of things. Yeah, but I think they're just best off going back in the recycling bin. Otherwise, so yeah, that's an interesting little fact. They can't even give them away. When people have cancelled their subscriptions or someone else's subscription, say if like someone lost their father or mother, passed away, and they ring up the Murdoch beast, and they said, "Look, we wish to cancel it." Said, well, would you like to take out the subscription? Would you like to give it to someone else? No. Want to get rid of it, and so they're desperate. There certainly is a desperate situation. So in some aspect, it's good to see some rebuttal of his stuff as well. I mean, Murdoch himself, yeah, he is evil, as far as but look, I think we've got to understand he is a capitalist through and through. Yeah, he's an evil. He's a shady, nasty piece of work. But that's besides the point. Let's look at what's primary. He's there to strengthen his position. He's there to make sure his position is enforced one way or the other, and he'll swing his opinion behind any party that will obviously help him to put policies in place to protect his position, but enforce it even and strengthen his position even further. He's a typical capitalist. Once and for all, profit is his main motive. But yeah, it's quite an interesting observation this week. There's been obviously there's a few other things around the place. Borders are starting to open up around the place. But it's up to the Benny state governments. And actually going back on, just flowing on from Murdoch to state governments now back to the federal government. What's interesting is the federal government's left it up to the states to deal with this COVID-19. When you have a look at the whole thing for the whole year, since it first came out late February, early March. So basically all Morrison's done is had television or webinar meetings with the premiers, but it's been up to the premiers. And then he just lamblasts any premier that's opposition to him for doing it wrong. Well, we don't have a uniform plan to deal with it. So like New Zealand, they don't have New Zealand doesn't have 3 levels of government like we do. And they actually had a national plan to deal with it, and a really good one too. Did Morrison want to have something like that? No. The Western Australian government, they're still not lifting border restrictions, obvious reasons, and good on them. I'm very critical Mark McGowan, the Premier of Western Australia. However, the good thing is he's sticking it right up Canberra. Prime Minister, he says, no, we're not going to be dictated to how we should do things. And vice versa, but because we haven't got a genuine national plan that will genuinely look after the population. It's more or less Morrison's pushing to get everyone back to work, back to work, back to work. And that because he is desperate as well. That federal budget they put out, but also too, you look at the nation's deficit, it's domestic deficit, like I just said earlier on in the piece, it is massive. I don't know, I think generations. I don't think capitalism is going to last for generations here in this country. I'm happy to be proven wrong. I think next to, but obviously if capitalism was around in, say, in 100 years' time here in Australia, there'd be still people paying off that big debt. Would be over $1 trillion. We're nearly $1 trillion now, I'm led to believe. So there you go. And because keep in mind, Australia, we're only a small population, 25 million, give or take 100,000. We're only about 25 million, but for us, that is huge. We're not a population of 1 billion people that might be able to pay that off in a particular time, and although we're a socialist nation, yet we will get to there. We'll get there one day. Obviously, these type of videos I'm doing is hoping to be a contribution to that step forward in the right direction. So that's what we're seeing across the board. The attacks on workers is going to intensify, obviously, through that as well. With the interesting, I was noticing, I don't know if anyone made the observation, but when Frydenberg, I think Joseph Frydenberg actually he's our federal treasurer, was giving his budget speech. In the background on the front bench there was the Federal Minister for Industrial Relations, Christian Porter. He was quite right in a way. It was like he was reading a whole manuscript non-stop. He was just concentrating on that. And it was a media commentary about draft industrial legislation. What's been put forward is not quite clear yet. The ACTU has been in a lot of discussions with the Business Council Australia. I'm not going to criticise that for the moment, but I just think, because I don't know what's being discussed, but Christian Porter has come out and, sorry, I will actually refer to that. Sorry, I didn't mean say publicly criticise, I mean publicly comment. Sorry, I do apologise, because I haven't got the details in front of me, so I'm not going to say what I don't know. But I do know this, that Christian Porter is drafting up legislation. Now, what's in it's going to be the devil in the detail. There's been, I've looked at a lot of comments on social media. Look, I mean, people are very concerned as well, but I think, look, the fight's going to intensify. I think one thing, unions will fight back. They've got a history of doing it. And it won't be just over big, massive rallies either. All sorts of avenues we've got to be fighting as well. So I think overall, I think we do need to get ourselves prepared and ready. As I said, what's installed, I'm not quite clear on it, but that's what's happening around. And this is our unfortunate thing. But I said to you, Stan, when common people talk about open, honest government, you think, well, I mean, look, this is a capitalist system. Of course, all sorts of things happen behind closed doors. But look, in the end of the day, yeah, I do agree. There should be a lot more openness about it. There's at least let the population know and explain why, instead of just. But what the tactic is, they'll draft it up. They'll have their cabinet meeting, and then put it to Parliament, bang, and hit everyone with it, and hopefully because they've got majority in the House of Representatives, get it to the Senate, and then we've got the big campaign to ask the crossbenchers there in the Senate to not agree with it. And unfortunately, what I'm concerned about, one day you only need one crossbencher to, you want to have it to 50-50, getting up to neck and neck, and you have that one crossbencher, and then lays down to them, and they can fall either way. So it's quite scary as well. But I think in the end of the day, look, they're trying to save capitalism. That's why all this industrial legislation has been drafted. It's all about trying to save capitalism. It's not about trying to save the working class. But the more they keep doing these things, I look at it this way. All right. Well, basically, what's happening? Why do they put all these anti-worker, anti-union legislation for? Yes, save capitalism too, but all they're trying to do is basically trying to hold the lid on the pressure cooker. They know class struggle is going to intensify. It is going to get pretty intense, and they know that pressure cooker is going to explode. And so when I actually gave a little talk on that dialectical materialism, it's the boiling all the water or boiling the egg, you could say, changing the inside. But yeah, they can hold the lid on the pressure cooker for so long. But, they can put all sorts of legislation, but that's going to explode, and people do. The history's shown that right around the world, and even here in Australia too. Yeah, so it's something just to keep in wary about. But look, well, I think the main thing is we do need to be prepared for a fight and start preparing ourselves now. I know COVID-19's made things hard, with restrictions and what we can do, but doesn't stop us from start linking up with other people via social media, discussing with Zoom meetings and collectively start discussing ways forward. I would actually, once again, I will absolutely make it loud and clear. If you are working, especially, but join your respective union that's got coverage of you. If you're unemployed, we've got the Australian Unemployed Workers Union. They certainly need a bolster as well, because unemployed people, if you're out of work, people on disability pensions or whatever, are certainly under attack as well. The whole working class, it's not just one section, but the whole working class. Well, going to unions and people go about labour aristocracy, that's under attack too now. But the imperialists in this country, imperial capitalists, don't realise they don't need them anymore either. So it is. So if you're ever worried about that, so yes, I'm even better paid workers and stuff all around the world, around this country. Sorry, everyone's going to be under attack one way or the other. So it's a good time to actually generate that discussion and talking about how we can build this community and build this unity across the board as well. So it gives you a little, just a half-hour spiel what's happening in Australia. And look, I know I haven't got too many people viewing this at the moment, but if you have a question, feel free to ask. Once again, I ask you to share my videos up far and wide to the rest of the world. And if you can transmit this to outer space, and hopefully another planet might be looking at this, that'd be really good too. So greetings to our Martian friends. So that's, if you can get that out far and wide, people don't want to watch it, make them watch it. I don't care how you do it. That'd be great. I love using a sense of humour too. You can understand, if you get to know me, what more, I do love using a wicked sense of humour. Yeah, actually, another thing about this week I want to comment on too. Last weekend happened. Centre of Political Innovation USA. I mentioned about Caleb Maupin. Dust James opened. He did an excellent opening on that, and there was exceptions, some brilliant speakers on that. Fantastic speakers. These speakers were all grassroots people, experienced. They're right at the forefront of the coalface of the struggle, and that's where that's where the best people come from the coalface itself, on the front line. And amazing. And Caleb's obviously did an exceptionally good speech there as well. Excellent stuff and some good ideas. And I will say this, I'll be perfectly honest with everyone, this is what we need for Australia, a Centre of Political Innovation Australia. And of course, we will adopt it for our conditions here. There's a lot of similarities with our comrades in the US, sure. But what we're willing to do is obviously adapt it for ourselves here in this country, and it'll be certainly good. What Centre of Political Innovation is a think tank, a proper socialist think tank, where people, it doesn't matter if you're a member of a party or not, you can come along and share, and we can have dialogue about moving forward. It's not about building a new party. It's not that at all. Let's make it absolutely clear. No, it's not going to be another left-wing party as well. There's plenty of them out there at the moment. And look, and not being nasty about it, but look, they haven't got it right. Okay, let's face it. They're not leading anything at the moment. And but I think this is something good. And of course, especially if you're just your common person, common working class person is quite interested in politics and active and being active and towards socialism. Look, this is a good atmosphere to have. It'll be safe, but people will have difference of opinions, but it'll be respected. There's none of this egoist, and no, we're not interested in being the kings of the protest cage either, right? We're not a movement. It's not the movement that matters. It's the masses that's going to make it. The movement's not going to make history. The masses will make history. Remember that. So I think this is an exceptionally good project ahead of them. It's something for all our Australian listeners here to take in mind, and even too for our New Zealand counterparts as well. Maybe it's on a CPI New Zealand and them as well. So let's. And I think first things first, I think we need to start having a little bit of dialogue amongst ourselves and building that community here. That's what I want to do. It's not about me. Personally, it's not about making, there's David Fox, great person. I am, but the fact is, at the end of the day, I want to be able to do my bit to contribute to build that community here in Australia, because it is desperately needed. as well. So I think it's I think we've got a lot of work to do up ahead ourselves. So that was quite inspiring stuff. I actually, if you can maybe send Caleb Morpin. He's going to go live at 11 o'clock. So I'm going to finish up a few minutes before 11. I've left a link down in the description there to go to his YouTube channel. But I would say send him a message about actually seeing which link they need to look at and watch that CPI conference. Goes for, I think, about an hour and a half, 2 hours. But it's otherwise pretty good, and there's some music in it. There's some good history and some great sharing, and it's just amazing. Years ago, it's funny. It's 20 years ago. Myself and no other comrades and friends of mine too had a very bad, different attitude towards the US, and we just think, it's just Yankee stuff, typical American, blah blah blah. But what I actually put it to, the common people in the US are a lot fundamentally different from the imperialist masters, and from the capitalists themselves. It's interesting. Everyone just sort of, I think, the media betrays, and Murdoch especially, again, going back to what to wave, Americans waving a Trump flag along, and rubbing the face. No, most of these people are quite common people. They're genuine people at the coalface, and really good. They've got an interesting way of going about things, and I actually, in my own, I was a bit wrong now. Once, many years ago, projected people in the US, and that I was completely wrong. I think it's just amazing what they're quite capable, and they do have a history of socialism, struggle for socialism in that country, and a very big rich history and class struggle as well. So look, I'll take my hats off to them, and obviously making some good friends there too. It's a great way of actually making new friends and developing good close relationships and good comradeship amongst each other. It's a good way to even to the personal side of things. It's a great way to develop further. You have that dialogue. Maybe we're not right on something, and we leave it something different. You think, we'll take that into consideration. So that's just something worthwhile to think about. We don't have to do anything straight away, but we can start moving in that direction. I think that'll be a big positive step for us here in Australia. So look, my hat's off to it, and big shout out to all those who organised the CPI USA. I'm led to believe they are going to be doing a few more live conferences, but eventually we'll be having a proper conference. I think Caleb mentioned somewhere in their their spring next year. So maybe after Easter. I was going to go the original one here in Easter this year, just after Easter this year. I was actually made jokes about that earlier in the piece, when it was called COVID-19. I said, I was actually going to be in New York, but certainly had to can all that. Cost me some money as well. Look, I'm not going to it happened. I'm not going to get angry about that. But certainly I think I'm led to believe they're going to try and organise something for next year. I would love to go to that. I'm still, hopefully we can have international flights again, resuming to the US. Probably not in the full capacity we used to have, but I would love to be there in person. I think actually it would be good. I've spoken to a couple of comrades about having an Australian delegation. I think that'd be great. There's a whole group of us that go over and have an Australian delegation to it. So it's just some food for thought, and I'm just putting that out there. No one has to make a definite decision straight away, but if you have any comment about that, let me know. That's going to be an interesting time about that. We're certainly in interesting times as well. The world is moving fast. And the struggle for socialism is intensifying, I'm led to believe. And also, too, what great news out of Bolivia. The movement for socialism being elected in a landslide. I think that is quite historical. That was a great slap in the face to imperialism and the reactionaries there in the country. People of Bolivia have spoken. There you go. They were talking about the last elections being illegitimate or whatever they're going on about. Well, there you go. Overwhelming majority. That certainly is a big step forward, but it's more than just electing them bums on the seat in Parliament. There was some criticisms that I think it might have been a misinterpretation, but I could be wrong on this. But the president's going to bring in some austerity measures. I think. Well, look, let's lay it down at time. I don't know if that was interpreted that way, but it's obviously caused a panic among some people in socialist circles and think, oh, they're going to sell out or whatever. No. I think we've got to keep into consideration the material conditions they have to operate under. They've got still a hostile military there. I'm led to believe they've still got a hostile imperial power north of them as well, and other hostile countries such as Colombia around them, etc. So let's just, I think we just need to back up. Let's just, give it a bit of space for a bit and let's see where it goes through. I mean, struggle comes in ebbs and forms. Just because actually either for a peaceful transition or for a revolutionary period, revolutionary period. You remember, as I said, the Bolsheviks just didn't have socialism straight overnight, 1917. Took the struggle for it comes in ebbs and flows. It doesn't just go in one straight line like that. It's in a spiral. There's sometimes steps back, there's some steps forward too. That's all part of it. But look, let's not be armchair activists about that and just give our opinion, because actually, one thing that does get a little bit annoying for me is that all these so-called revolutionary experts in all these first world capitalist nations, English-speaking, in Europe and that, and then saying, oh, that's not real socialism, oh, they're selling out, rah, rah, rah. Oh, my, are we an expert in leading a revolution, are we? Come on, that's, look, it's, nothing's perfect. It's going to be under attack there in Ecuador. Look, Venezuela's still under attack for economic sanctions, etc. There's Cuba. I mean, when the Russian Revolution happened, socialism from its outset was under constant attack. Did it provide things straight away and great miracles straight away? No, it didn't. It was a struggle to get there. Even if you've knocked out the capitalists and their power, they're still around and they're still trying to do everything possible to get back into power. That's including sabotage, doing all sorts of terrorist activities, etc. So that's always something to keep in mind about. But look, I think it's still a step forward in the right direction, and a big congratulations to Bolivia. Someone mentioned me the other day something's happening in Ecuador. I'm not going to comment because I don't know. Maybe so. And good. There is great. And shows it's struggling around the world. And also too, let's just talk a little bit about China for a minute. And congratulations to China. They are now the world #1 economy. Even as we speak, they're still #1. They've been #1 for some time now, I think, and the capitalism imperialist masters are certainly pissed off big time that now they've been superseded finally, and I think we're sucked into them. Good. Finally, and a lot of countries, and I believe Russia now are in talks. I was reading an article on RT, and I believe Russia's having talks now about maybe possibly a strong military alliance too. I think it'd be a positive thing, because it's hopefully too they can have some good dialogues with Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Let's not call it North Korea; it's Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Bring them in, and actually, I believe the bonds, their 70th anniversary of the Chinese involvement in the Korean War. The bonds now between the two peoples are growing stronger, which is a really healthy sign. I think it's something really good. I think all this waving the gun at their waving the declaration of war with the Chinese, I think it's going to backfire onto us in a spectacular fashion. Look, I've been asked about my opinion on China, and look, I hold it in high regard. I don't blame China for the situation Australia is in. I mean, they're our biggest trading partner, yes, but they're not responsible for the conditions that we are having in Australia here. And I think, we can look at China, I think they're just racing ahead. They're racing ahead. They got on top of COVID-19 very quickly. When all the libertarians, there's one criticism about the ABC when they're going on, but they're against Western liberal values. They locked everyone down. Well, tough luck. They had to get on top of this very quickly. They've got a population of about 1.5 billion people, and a lot of these experts in the media here, they know about dealing with a population like that. They got it under control very quickly. They warned the rest of the world there's this new virus through the WHO. They warned everyone, and they got into it straight away, investigating it, getting into doing proper scientific studies of it, and trying to actually develop a vaccine and a cure for it too. And they're still doing that. They're going racing straight forward. Making jokes too. I'm calling it the Wuhan flu and Chinese flu, and putting to them. Look, Chinese people are quite resilient people. Actually, they're just ignoring it. Keep going. Trump, keep going. You do what you do. We're getting on with what we got to do, and it's been some exceptional work. Have they got a hard road? Yes, of course they have. And actually, interesting too, it's in China how much they're greening their country. I shared something up on Facebook last night. Got shared from someone else's post. What they're returning the degraded land back into lush, green, fertile land, both forests and farming. It's just amazing, and they've been doing it for some years now. Xi Jinping came into policy when he came leader. Well, I mean, they've been doing it for years, since the 90s. Actually, they realised they've got all this degraded land. Silt going into the Yellow River, and all this. That's why it's called the Yellow River. All the silt they were building into it. And desertification, the whole lot. So they actually had to get onto large scale mobilisation to deal with it. And they've done some amazing things. How much they've reforested a lot of lands. Here in Australia, what have we done? Little bits and pieces here. I mean, what would be good here? And regardless of what the political persuasion was, okay, we're going to have a massive unemployment. What if we mobilise the unemployment here, re-employ them on a wage, not a work for the dole, but on a proper wage, and go and replant forests, start regreening. Let's look at degraded land, about slowing down running water, because what you look at Australia is like a big floodplain, really, on the western side of the ranges north of here. What it is, we can slow down that flow and get the moisture there actually back into the ground. That way, also, it allows more plant life to grow, more moisture, but also cools the place down as well. That's interesting. And there is people doing that already. But I think if we could do that large scale, I think that'd be something good. And we can start doing that. It will also help us start dealing with the systematic climate change we're dealing with, which everyone's predicting another summer. We're fortunately not in a drought. We're in a La Nina effect, so we've had a lot more rain, which has been great. Beautiful country out there at the moment. It's lush and green. I've never seen wheat fields so thick with wheat, and canola fields so thick in my life. It's just amazing. Anyway, well, going back to what saying, what we do it here? Why don't we? Why can't we do it? I'm sick and tired of the yes, buts, what ifs. No, why aren't we doing it? No, I think we should be doing that. That'd be something really exceptional to put us to our work. And I mean, even too with our bushfire mitigation. Learning about cultural burning and learning how to actually properly manage land with that could be all linked up with it. It'd be amazing what we could do, so we could minimise the impact of bushfires and actually probably even avoid such catastrophic bushfires. What's just been happening in California lately was, well, what happened to us last summer, but they're having a catastrophic. And now the fire seasons are overlapping. We've been very fortunate because actually it was in October last year, the first fire season started taking off. So we've been fortunate so far, but look, you only need one big dry spell. There might be a week of heat waves on the eastern coast here, especially or in Western Australia. Dry everything out, it becomes a tinderbox. So that's and that where we get these cataclysmic and disastrous bushfires we've never seen. So that's it's something we always just have a think about that. Put in your pipe and smoke it, as they say. I think we should take that into consideration. I think it's a perfect opportunity for us in Australia, especially now after a lot of heavy rain, or the raining season, putting moisture back in. I think it's a great time to get back into it. But the Chinese have done it. The Chinese are still doing it, and you can't. People like to knock them, but they're just getting on with what they have to do, and bit by bit they build. They're put themselves much more in a stronger position. I think to the Australian government here, stop being such a lapdog of the US. I think it's start developing relations with China instead of trying to put all this stupid hostility to them. I mean, all China has to do is just switch off any economic relations with us, and we're gone. They know that. They don't. So that's where we're at the moment. So well done to China. I think what they've done is very interesting. There's still stuff on YouTube about that. And obviously too, I think go to some of their media outlets or on these posts, I'm pretty sure they've got articles and footage on that, how they're regreening their country. It's very interesting stuff, and I'll actually love that. Love seeing that as well. Interesting on that too, because there's just watching a Netflix series called Rotten. It's about the food industry, and that I'm talking about the avocado industry, that I'm talking about the chocolate industry, which is pretty nasty stuff. So if you have got Netflix, I would actually recommend watching that series Rotten and all the players behind that and just all the shady crap that goes on behind our food manufacturing around the world. The chocolate industry, I wasn't aware how just it was actually controlled by a few cartels and just what goes on in Africa there, where a lot of it comes from. They even talk about the medicinal marijuana, a lot of that coming into it. And also the problems they've got there as well. So, they talk about other industries, sugar, no, and just how notorious that is, and also the avocado industry. Interesting, and just how people have been murdered and growers murdered, and how land's natural land's taken out to grow all these water-intensive crops. So, I recommend it. Watch Rotten on Netflix. I think it's something. It's a worthwhile series. It's quite interesting reading through that as well. There are actually a couple of things I would just want to comment on. Big fan of George Galloway. Love his work. Big shout out to George Galloway in the UK there, both with the Workers' Party of Britain, and also big shout out to the Communist Party of Great Britain, Marxist-Leninists. They're great comrades in that party too, and they've been involved in the Workers' Party of Britain project, I'm led to believe. Jody Brahe has been the vice president. Just going back to George Galloway, and I love his program, Mother of All Talk Shows. The Sunday night one, that's in the early hours of the morning here in Australia. I think about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock it starts. So I'm not up in time sometimes I might be up in time or if I'm on the road, but I do listen to it. I listen to it in podcast, but also he's got a second Mother of All Talk Shows extra, which is on every Wednesday evening in the UK, now Thursday morning here. And I went to the Patreon page and subscribed to it. Loved it. It's been a bloodbath. I love some of it. Now, it was interesting. We had this guy, this one fellow rang him up and making a comment. I think it was William from Bristol, led to believe. That's all he's known. And started just tearing into George about calling him a fascist. And George has got this red button press and press. It sounds like a Navy ship going in, leaving off the alarm. Wah, wah, wah. Announcing it. And what I was actually analysing what was said there, I will actually go to this common comrades. When people use these words loosely, they're actually using it divorced from what the actual meaning is. And that's something always been a bit annoying. But people saying, oh, that's fascist. How's it fascist? They're obviously using the word divorced from what its meaning. It's like when people said, oh, nationalisation. Well, they're actually using it very loosely. I would strongly advise, don't use words loosely at all. I mean, George tore him an arsehole. I thought that was fantastic. And William from Bristol, you're a twat. You really are. You're a complete git. And a tosser as well. So, he got destroyed. Man, sorry about that. But fascism, look, it's not government policy. It's not a separate system from capitalism. It's the most terrorist, brute dictatorship of capitalism. And look, I'll give you a classic examples in history. Besides Hitler and Mussolini, have a look at Pinochet's Chile. I actually know quite a few people from Chile, and they can tell you exactly what that was like. And obviously Caleb's done a lot of talks on that about Nazi economics and that, etc., and explain what it's all about. And I would still highly recommend get your hands on this book, Against Fascism and War by Georgy Dimitrov. You can easily order it. Just Google it. You don't have to worry about links. Just Google it in, and it'll come up. And it's still in print, which is really good. And it describes what fascism is. I think it's vitally important to understand what it is. And when people use words loosely, oh, that's fascist. Well, how's it fascist? It's got no idea at all. It is, and in the 1930s, Georgy Dimitrov described what fascism is, and it still rings true to what it actually is today. So, when he described it, with fascism, I mean, really, is at the end of the day. With the development of the very deep economic crisis, with the general crisis of capitalism becoming sharply accentuated and the mass of working people becoming revolutionarised, fascism has embarked on a wide offensive. The ruling bourgeoisie more and more seeks salvation in fascism with the object of taking exceptional predatory measures against the working people, preparing for an imperialist war of plunder, attacking the Soviet Union, enslaving and petitioning China, and by all these means preventing revolution. Now, they said this back in the 1930s. Now, I'm just going to see where he actually wrote that. No, I'll find it. But anyway, he does explain what it is. It is the brute dictatorship of capitalism, the terror of finance capital itself. It certainly is. It's the most chauvinist. It's the most imperialist, the most ultra-reactionary and ultra-conservative as well. And so what you're finding here, here we go. Fascism is not a form of state power standing above both classes, the proletariat and the bourgeoisie, as Otto Boyle, for instance, as I said. It is not the revolt of the petty bourgeoisie which has captured the machinery of the state, as the British Socialist Brotherhood declares. No, fascism is not a power standing above class nor government of the petty bourgeoisie or the lumpen proletariat over finance capital. Fascism is the power of finance capital itself. It is the organisation of terrorist vengeance against the working class and the revolutionary section of the peasantry intelligentsia. In foreign policy, fascism is jingoism in its most brutal form, fomenting bestial hatred of other nations. There you go. It's certainly that's what you understand. So please, if you do hear people saying things loosely, just explain to them, look, don't try to use these words loosely. Use a good opportunity to educate. And maybe it's good education for yourselves as well. So I highly recommend this book. Sorry, I was a little bit jaunted on that. I was just trying to find the actual page for that. But there you go. Georgy Dimitrov, Against Fascism and War. Excellent read. And also, too, just one last too about Caleb Maupin. I've ordered this book. Finally, 3 months it took to come here. But I finally got it. The Green Book, the updated version of the opening with Caleb Maupin. We're reading it at the moment. A very interesting book. And I've left the links to Caleb Maupin's webpage there, so you can order it. And it's quite interesting to read at the moment. I might talk a little bit more about that after. Look, it's coming on to 11 o'clock with 3 minutes to go. Look, once again, thank you very much to everyone listening in. Please, once again, I'm going to ask you to share this far and wide. A massive shout out to everyone I know. And look, the more we can build a community, that's great. Look, don't have to feel afraid to ask a question either. I certainly would love to. I'll try and answer it. If I don't know, I'll just tell you I don't know. I'm not going to ask things on things I don't know about. But that's where it is at the moment. So look, once again, take care of yourselves. The struggle is going to intensify one way or the other. It might not seem straight away, but I think, look, we're not in this alone. We all struggle together. And I'd just like to finish this off. Look, besides that, capitalism is on the offensive around the world, big time. Its power is being shaken as well. Its foundations have been shaken to the ground, and it's going to become more reactionary and more intense. But revolution is on the horizon. I'd like to finish this off as dare to struggle, dare to win. If you don't fight, you lose. Thank you.